All right, we're getting started again. Thank you all for joining. So for the CDS security and gRPC TLS authentication, one of the for the TLS authentication, Alexei, we said we just need HTTPS for the blueprint processor and the control blueprint integration.
Yeah, that's right. So
final decision?
What?
Was it final decision?
What is the other post-control decision? No, yeah, we need this. We need certificates.
Certificates, right?
At the end of the day, what we need is certificates.
Okay, so I know whatever work Henry's doing, Janani and Henry most likely will extend that to blueprint processor and control blueprint AF integration. It's not the CBA implementation of AF, it's just the platform implementation, but for designer role and for runtime role itself.
Okay.
So that should achieve it, and the goal will be for, I think, early drop 2, or early drop 3 we have, or drop 3 for El Alto, because we're already in 2, right?
We're in 3.
We're in 3 already?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in 2 of sprint 3, so.
We're in sprint 3 already.
So we have,
So I think the only thing that is stopping us to do that integration right now, we're waiting for our namespace to be available, and Jonathan has added it. We're going to get clarification on tomorrow's call with AAF, or Henry is. So once we get that clarification, we'll extend those that implementation also for the blueprint processor and control blueprints.
Great.
And any questions on that? Is that the only thing that we needed?
I think so.
Okay.
Honestly, this is really much about this. As soon as we have certificates, then we can provide them into the gRPC authentication. Right now, this is for gRPC, right? Or HTTP and gRPC. Is it for both? Anyway, once we have the certificate, we can use it for both.
Right.
Yeah.
It should be implemented for both.
Yeah, and that would work. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think as a follow-up, I'll check with Henry tomorrow to make sure that we close on that gap for getting our namespace so that we can complete the implementation, at least from a UI perspective. Once we have the UI, we'll extend it to also the blueprint processor and control blueprints. When is the integration? Brenda, are you there?
Yeah, Yuri.
Brenda, when is the plan to upstream the code for combining the control blueprints and blueprint processor?
Yeah.
Is that something that's going to be done for El Alto, or is that planned for Frank?
It is already available, actually, because first thing, it's like, along with that, we need to do 2 important things, but high level, the conceptual level integration, it's done. It's done. Okay. So
then
I can speak about like what are the modification and what are the changes that we want to do along with that. I can speak about if there is any time available. Other than that, it is already done. It means like right now itself, if you run a blueprint processor, it combines both. It combines a blueprint processor as well as a controller. Only thing is the designer API. You can enable and disable designer API. Then that decides that whether you are running a runtime platform or both platform.
So, Brenda, maybe we can take some time now. You can show that, how to enable that, so I can communicate that to Runati and Arisie, so that we can start having the UI pointing to those APIs for doing the execution just to the blueprint processor.
Okay. Okay. So how much time that we have?
I would say 30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So in that case, I will take that 15 minutes for this, and then 15 minutes I will speak about other important topic also. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Let me share my screen. So what we have done, let me talk about why we need this actually. Okay. This integration. Initially, what we thought we need to have a separate platform for designing perspective and as well as a runtime perspective. And during the design time itself, there are some requirements already we have. So one important thing is enrichment, and another one important thing is validation. We want to do 2 things, enrichment and validation. So enrichment we can do somehow, we can do effectively along with the designer platform itself without interacting with the runtime platform. But the validation perspective, so we need what kind of runtime that we are going to use for that particular model. So based on that, we need to validate certain things. One important validation is resource instance. So whatever the model that we are trying to use, whether that particular resource instance is available or not, that one important thing. And each resource instance validation, suppose for an example, if I want to apply a certain validation for a particular resource source, okay, for REST source or A&I source, I want to apply a certain validation for the particular model I'm trying to use, then there is right now it's very difficult for us to validate that, okay. And moreover, and another important point, why? Because during the design time we are not aware of what may be the runtime, okay, and what may be the packages, because all those functions are injected during that runtime itself, not on design time. So it means only runtime knows that what is valid, whether the blueprint is valid or not. Only runtime can tell that, okay, with respect to that what are the functions available there. That is the reason we want to. There may be some situation we need to validate certain things also upfront, because recovery, that failure recovery, it's so huge, and then it's so costly also. Operation is so costly, failure recovery here in this case. That's the reason we want to avoid. And moreover, we need a simplified platform also. Certain cases, we are thinking like multiple user groups working on multiple instances, and then we are thinking of in future we want to scale a particular service. Here we are thinking about service in a single CBA file, right? So we want to deploy one CBA file in one instance of CDA, so that we can have if you have 10 CBA files, then it may be a 10 CBA instance. You can scale it up and down based on the number of requests that you are getting, volume, based on the volume, and what service is important. So based on that, you can scale those services. So keeping in that mind, we want to have a simple runtime as well as a simple design time also. We don't want to bother about, or we don't want to concentrate on a lot of integrations and multiple containers okay, coming into the picture. So in that case, we thought like we should have a there should be an option to include both runtime and design time in a single container, so that we can make use of that. Still, we can go ahead and do that with a separation, but we are also providing that option to do that. So one simple thing is like what we want to do is just let me put that simple concept. Another important concept is whatever this application we are trying to talk about, it is not the universal application here. So whatever the application in ONAP, it's a sample application. Okay, whatever the application and distribution. So these two packages or these two modules, it's like a sample. Okay, each organization will build their own application and own distribution. Okay, the idea here, it's like that application. Okay, each organization is going to build. So inside my organization, sometimes I feel that I don't want to expose a Kafka. So in that case, I can enable and disable that Kafka. And inside my organization, I may not use the REST services also. So in that case, you can do all those modifications and security implementations and interceptor and all those it's a decoration in that application project. That's the reason I'm trying to say that application, it's up to organization how we want to do that. And most of the reusable functionality comes into that function and then modules. The core functionality comes in the function module. Another important concept is a Docker image build. Okay, so right now this is a one sample to build one Docker image. Okay, so with that distribution package. Ideally speaking, inside that organization, you can extend this framework and you can have a multiple distributions. So one for operation X, operation Y, and then which includes only resource resolutions. And sometimes you may not want to use a resource resolution, because I have seen that inside that AT&T itself, I have seen that so many use cases which we may not need that resource resolution, only in terms of orchestration perspective, or in terms of scripting, okay, how effectively that we can interact with the devices, only the southbound perspective. Okay, so there are so many use cases with respect to that. So in that case, we don't want to have a single distribution file. It's up to that organization. They can have the distribution, okay. They can build what all the functions they want, okay. So here, out of this, we can build a number of reusable functionalities. but you can decide that what functions that you can distribute, or you can build that image, or what functions to be part of that particular image. So in my case, I may not use an Ansible AWS executor. So in that case, I can skip that dependency either by POM file or any other during the Docker image itself. No, we can filter it out that particular dependency, or you can manage all those things with the distribution and application package altogether complete. How to disable and enable? It's a simple thing. Okay, so like we enable and disable. We have created one more northbound API. So assume that it's a designer, it's an API. So and it serves like a northbound perspective. So in that case, it comes under that inbound. Okay. So inbound we have a designer API. This designer API, it's nothing but just representation of one MAV1 dependency. That is nothing but controller blueprint service dependency. So already assume that, as I said earlier, that application and distribution, it's up to that organization. So it means like rest other modules is a reusable module. And in this case, it's a service is a reusable model which holds all the API and all the repository access. Okay, repository access means in this case it's a database access. So we have that, and all the services. Okay, even enrichment, auto load functionalities, and everything it's inside the service. Okay, so just what I'm trying to showcase here, it's just we can have the dependency, just include the dependency in the designer API. That's it. Okay, so
Brenda, quick question here. Our structure in the Git repo doesn't change, right? You're just adding a reference to the CDS controller blueprints repo itself, and that's going to instantiate that API capability?
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So before that, to do this, we made certain modifications inside that, and already it's done. It's up and ready. So we made this controller blueprint to adapt to the runtime platform itself. We made that to duplicate dependency, avoiding the duplicate names and all those things. We made changes. Okay, now it's ready. Only thing is you want to do, it's like just you have a reference, and sometimes if you want to have extra authentication and authorizations on top of this designer API, then you are going to manage with this application configuration. Okay, so not more than that. And another important point that I'm trying to talk, what is pending right now, it's right now if you try to look into that, if you try to see that, controller blueprint also has its own blueprint management. So it means like during the design time itself, we can create a blueprint, upload the blueprint, and save the blueprint in a database, right? And similarly, for runtime also, we have a blueprint repository, that is a CBA repository. We have this repository, we get that CBA file from either from SDC perspective, we get that. We get that CBA file, and we store the CBA file inside that repository. So it means like we have a two tables, okay, meant for the same purpose actually. So what we can do is like we can combine these two things and merge the tables into two things. And if it is a runtime, we can make use of the same tables, and if it is a design time, we can make use of the design time tables. So we can merge these two things. In that way, we can effectively manage the size and other maintenance perspective. Also, we can manage very effectively. So that's one thing that we want. We have done that. And another important thing, validation. Okay, right now, if you try to look into that, initially we had a design of for design time validations and runtime validations separately. Now we are planning to think of that validation should be a common, and that's the reason we will in future, if time permits, we will try to do a common validation, and then we can make use of those references there itself directly. So in that case, we can avoid validation codes also, validation configuration. In that case, I could say that validation configuration, and other case it's repository management, database repository management. So in that way, we can manage that, so that it will be very simple, and you can take a simple one Docker image, and then you can deploy. You can make use of both runtime and design time. You can use very effectively. You can build a context-based design time also. Certain cases now, what I'm predicting that dictionary should be a context-specific also sometimes in future. Right now, we are concentrating on that universal dictionary or universal resource resolution dictionary here, resource definition here. Sometimes you want to build a context-based resource dictionary, then in that case it will be more useful, and because we have a single platform or single container, so that we can make use of that very effectively. And it's easy also. That's the reason initially I told that we don't want to integrate a lot of so many frameworks inside that blueprint processing platform. Either it should be a delegation platform kind of thing, even it is a logging or even it is a database access or whatever it may be. It should be a delegation pattern, so that the framework should concentrate only on execution, orchestration, and how to do that stuff, how to connect those stuffs. Okay, only it can concentrate on those things actually. Rest other things we can build peer to that, so that peers can handle those kind of other decorations.
A quick question. You mentioned there are two tables we'll combine to store the packages. Are those tables that you're referring to are design time and runtime?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, if you see the table structures, both runtime and design time, both are same except that flag, only the flag indicator. Okay, we have that. It's a publish or no. Other than that, columns, if you try to look into that, both are same. Okay, if you try to look into that, both runtime and design time, right? So if you try to accommodate that publish and extra, if possible, one more column extra, then everything will be same. So if you merge, if you are running a runtime, the table name will be same, but it will be a separate instance.
Very good.
That's all I have with respect to that. So another important point I'm trying to think it's in terms of separating the build. So the function should be separated out from this project, so that this framework will be completely, it concentrates only on the core, okay, core framework functionality, so that you can build the functions separately, and the distributions will include this core framework and then functions and build their image.
One more question, Brenda. If we can, you said also that we can have multiple instances of Blueprint processor itself, right, with different capabilities or functions that are deployed based on the distribution packaging. Do we need to have the UI being able to discover these different instances of Blueprint processor and enable the different functionalities like for validation and enrichment as well?
Yeah, exactly. That we can do that. Because that's the reason, you remember long time itself, I asked for a configuration management in the UI. So it means you can configure what backend that we are going to use. So in that case, you can easily switch that backend. Say for an example, you can easily tell that I'm going to work on resource resolution backend. Okay, so in that case, you can select that resource resolution backend, and then if you configure that endpoint, then directly you can point to that particular running instance, and then you can do validation, you can do the models on top of that. Okay, so in that case, easily you can manage it from front-end perspective just by changing the configuration, what runtime that I want to select, or what runtime that I'm going to work on that. In that case, you can spawn up a new runtime, or you can build your own local runtime itself, and then you can point and then you can design that. So in that case, UI will be the same. You can have a single UI, single instance of UI, and with that configuration, you can switch to multiple backends, and then you can easily validate those blueprints, what are the blueprints that you have, and you easily validate with that particular runtime.
And you also said that we can spin up the runtime using the CDS UI, or is that through OM Helm chart?
At a point of time, we can do that also. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just capture that as a roadmap item.
Yeah, you can capture that. But right now, no. Right now, we are concentrating on the single thing, how to build a Docker or a distribution dynamically. That's the next thing, that immediate thing that we want to concentrate. That's the one thing. And another point I want to talk about, it's like we need a flag, or we need some option. Okay, either it should retrieve from the database, that CBA file. Right now, it looks the runtime platform looks the CBA file from the database perspective. But we need an option, not only the database perspective, we can skip the database and then only we can look into the file structure. So in that case, we can have a one master management, the blueprint processor management, master management, and then we can have a multiple instances just mount to that file path. So in that case, all the rest of the only other than that master, okay, just only thing is it can look only in the file path because it is already mounted to that file path already together. So in that case, it can just only you can make use of the particular other. It's like a other blueprint runtime platform. Just invoke and then get it done. Whatever the process that we want to achieve. Okay. I believe you are trying to visualize that what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah. Any questions on?
Yeah, I have a question. So, hey, Brenda, you mentioned that you can deploy the runtimes dynamically. How is that achieved?
Yeah, we can. It's possible. The serverless function, it's possible by using that.
Okay.
With the serverless functions, you can dynamically create whatever the image that you can create that image and then you can deploy that with that native APIs.
Okay, but then that's still done through Helm.
No, without Helm itself we can do that. That's what I'm trying to say. The native APIs, using that Kubernetes native APIs.
Okay, so you're okay, and are you leveraging MSB in any way, or this is you're building your own APIs to kind of talk to?
Even Spring has that. Spring has that API itself altogether. Most of the infrastructure or most of the framework it has it's now for open-based Kubernetes and a lot other even Azure. Okay, a lot of the platform exposes their API to dynamically create that instance. It's most of the serverless functions. No, it operates in the same way.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm getting at is because we had some issues when deploying the Casablanca version, where basically we were restricted not to have the cluster admin role in Kubernetes, and it would not deploy, right? So and then we realized MSB was one of the ones that was trying to create a user in the Kubernetes cluster as cluster admin.
Okay.
So I think there is some concerns to be managed, like because you don't want the user to be cluster admin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
The concept is very simple actually. So it means like this is a production. We are not going to touch the production, right? So only thing is you are going to touch or design. Mostly I assume that the design activities all will take before the production. Okay, once you certify the CBA, you are not going to do any modification on CBA. So it means like it's a production grade kind of thing. During that, so it means like you are going to operate in a test environment. Okay, so you need to have the flexibility. You will have all those permissions, most of the permissions, just like bringing that new instance dynamically. Okay, and then you can destroy those instances. Most of the things, it's like we can easily manage that, right?
Okay. All right. Okay. So I mean, this is not a big deal for now, but what I was getting at was why are we not using the common framework, which is your MSB, to spin any new microservices, and rather just coming up with Spring.
Let me talk about that. What kind of MSB supports? MSB supports if you have already done or if you already built the Docker image, right? If it's already built and if it is in a repository, then using that MSB, you can spin up that image and as well as you can discover that particular instance, right? So only that you can do that. But what I'm trying to talk here, it's dynamically creating the Docker image itself. Based on the configuration, you are trying to create the image. So while if I try to model a particular, I'm trying to model a CBA file, which in that model it needs a netconf executor and CLI executor. I may not need a Ansible executor. I may not need a resource resolution. So in that case, so what I'm trying to say, it's like with that configuration, whatever the CBA file itself, it can understand that what kind of runtime it needs basically. So with that, it can build a Docker image because the core platform is common. It's going to be same. Only the function it is going to differ. Okay, what function that we are going to add on top of that, right?
Right.
So, and it builds that. It tries to build a new Docker image only for this particular CBA file. Okay, so in that case, it's a CBA file includes only two executors, only two functions. It is going to be there inside the Docker. So that in that way, you are trying to provide a controlled environment for a particular service, or even in that case, I can give a controlled environment for a certain user itself. Okay, so that is the ultimate aim that I'm trying to bring that concept here. It means like a secured environment with respect to service or with respect to customer, right?
Okay, no, I understood that, but how is it possible without an image to spin a container run.
Exactly. That's where the serverless function concepts comes actually. Okay. So with that serverless functions, you can build or dynamically build your image on fly, and then you can deploy those images also, right?
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll read on this offline.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's like a more dynamic image build process is a more dynamic, and then it creates a platform also. It's a more dynamic, right, for you.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. So, and along with that, I said that, okay, we need to have one more option, okay, where we want to look that, right now the catalog file, the catalog information we are trying to look in the database, and then after that we are trying to look it in a file path. And we need to have an option just to filter it out or manage either by looking that file structure itself, file-based structure itself alone. There is no need to look into the database. In that case, we can avoid certain process, okay, or we can control or we can delegate that management to only one instances, and rest other things only take care of only executing the operations of the CBA file, because it is already mounted together. I assume that I think I'm not making any confusion here.
Any questions for Brenda? Okay, Brenda, let's take it to the next topic.
Yeah. Next topic, I can speak about the DSL. Okay. Let me talk about the story, why we came up with this DSL concept actually. Initially, it's over a period of time, we have seen that multiple CBA files, we started creating multiple CBA files inside a component, right? So we could see test packages, we started creating multiple CBA files, and multiple test cases are pointing to single CBA file. Okay, so single CBA file. What's the reason behind that? It's because of the model, creation, it's a tedious process. That's the one thing. It needs a lot of precision, and then we need a lot of information to create that model itself. And then after then, we need, if there is any error, it's very difficult to even sort it out. What's the error itself inside the model? That's a main thing that we started looking into. Is there any way that we can optimize that? It means like for a particular test cases, I can build a certain model or certain piece of model along with the code itself. I can build and then make use of that, and I can execute that. Okay, that is the first starting point to think of. Is there any way that we can optimize that? And then another important concept and another important point, it's like internally I started hearing a lot of use cases which static model could not achieve completely. Okay, with that static model we can't achieve many of the use cases. So it means like sometimes I may want to decide that this workflow or other workflow I want to make a call, and then for simplicity perspective I want to just create that resource assignment in a programmatic way, and then I want to make a call, and then based on the situation I want to decide that whether I want to go this or that kind of logic. So most of the times mostly in a service chaining concept perspective. Okay, in a service chaining concept perspective, I think still so many use cases that we want to explore, and then we want to optimize that. Optimization network, and then automatic identification of peers, okay, and all those use cases. No, it requires a lot of intelligence. Okay, what I'm trying to say is like it requires a lot of intelligence. So for time being, whatever the model that we are trying to use, the self-service perspective, and with a JSON, whatever we have, it suits most of the use cases. But in future, I feel that we need some more dynamic language, right? The dynamic language to mitigate all those issues. That's the second point. That's the second important reason. And after then, the third important thing, it's like we need a editor support. Okay, so right now, what are the model that we are trying to use? We don't have any editor, okay, because we expected UI to be fast, and then we thought UI will come very easily. But the problem is like we couldn't get the UI in a proper time actually, and which sometimes which may hit the CDS, and then which people may not use the CDS, and finally it will be dead. That's the reason we want to mitigate those kind of issues to fasten the process and as well as just to give the taste to all in a simpler way. That's keeping all those things in mind. Then we thought of we thought of having a separate new language, or not a new language. It's the same language, okay, in a more easy way. That's the reason we thought of a DSL. So we decided DSL language building up of the DSL. In a simple term, if I want to say that what's the difference between the DSL and the JSON model, okay, Maven, assume that Maven file, POM file is traditional our CBA file, and Gradle is nothing but a DSL file. Okay, if you try to look into the Gradle, it's completely on DSL. It's a domain-specific language. Okay. So it provides a lot of dynamicity. You can include your codes or include your utility functions. Okay, you can define that, and then it has editor support. Maven, you can't do that modification. Dynamically, you can't manage the dependency. It's like only the dependency you can include, and it is a static content. You can't manage those dependencies, and then you can't create your own builders and a lot of the stuff more dynamically. So this is a simple comparison. So for that, we came up with a DSL. So what we have built, we built a DSL builder for entire our model. Just all those things we could see here. We have a model, so we have a builder for all workflow, templates, types, all those things. We started building that. And along with that, we started building for all the types that whatever we have, we are supporting that, all those types that we already. And as well as we started building that DSL for our components or functions itself. One good example, it's like, let me go on to that. Service itself. It's a simple scripting, okay? So this component is like component script executor. So we have created as component script executor. In that way, I built a DSL. Okay, what is the input and what is the output? Okay, so I can. This is a framework code. Don't bother about this framework code. So mostly we want to look how we can make use of that DSL, right? So in that case, see here, this is a one simple service template. You can see that very easily I can build that, okay? With these lines of code, I can build that service template. So in that case, this is a universal service template. So I don't want to build or I don't want to rely on any JSON and then refer the JSON file, okay? So another good example, it's like you can use the JSON directly, JSON content directly, and then you can, if suppose you are able to do a code or even configuration itself, you can build your own configurations and then you can inject your own configuration in a simpler way. So like that, we have built that workflow. Think about like this workflow, okay? So we have a activate, so we have a steps, and then that steps we have an input, and then automatically it provides a content assist support. If you try to look into that, it provides a content assist. So you can make use of that, all those content assist, okay? And here in this case, one good example, how resource resolutions, okay? Another example is like how we use that resource resolution, okay? See here. This is a resource definition, right? This is a resource resolution definition. So we have a property, okay, what is the property name and what are the sources? So in that case, we have a source capability and then source DB. So if you try to look into that, the source capability has a type and script function and then key dependencies. You can include that coding also, right? Utility functions also you can try to include that in this case. And then you can straight away include the classes also. So in that case, no, if there is any changes in that class name also, automatically it will be reflected. So in that case, you can avoid that breakage also. Another important aspect is we can avoid a lot of breakages because since it's a compilable model, okay, so that it can easily tell that what is breaking and if in terms of migrating your models also it can easily tell that, okay, suppose if you change the name of the file, automatically you can come to know that what file. And then constants, okay, you may not hard coding that value like a device ID and types and most of the stuffs, okay, you can make use of that. Like those, we have defined all those models in a DSL way. So in that you could easily achieve in a simpler way. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is like in a compile you can use the editor to build that. And another example, it's like we built that entire model with the DSL itself. So it means like in that case, you could see that I don't have the definition. This is a resource audit, one more use case that we have. So in that case, we didn't have a definition model itself. That means we didn't have a blueprint definition itself, okay, all those JSON files. We built completely on scripts. So what another advantage that we are trying to get, it's like a fastness, right? So since it's a compilable code and finally the end result is a jar file and it is deployed in a platform, and we built a caching mechanism, caching services already. So with that case, caches that information, caches that entire model itself along with the class path. It caches that, and finally it executes in a fraction of time. Okay, we can compare that these two execution. Okay. And moreover, it brings a complete integration. So in that case, you don't want to look for any other programming language. With that Kotlin itself, we can do completely. So in that case, it will be very simpler, and it's a uniform. So throughout, it's a common platform for modeling perspective, or common technology, or I could say that common modeling language. Okay, so we can make use of that. And here, if you try to look into that entire definition, that audit definition, the service template definition itself, I have defined here. See here the service template, and then it's a similar, the same. Even you can optimize that. If you try to optimize, or if you think that, okay, I want to simplify the model further, you can define a model in a such a way, in a DSL language in a such a way, so that I can combine that workflow and node template as a simple concept. Okay, I can define a simple concept called workflow with a node. Okay, I can create a one DSL name. Okay, with that you can combine these two things. If you feel that if you are trying to use a workflow and a node template, a one-to-one mapping, so in that case you can make use of that. Here it's very simple. See here how workflow is simply defined. So we have an input. So I'm just mapping that class. And another important thing, I'm trying to bring that bean definition. So sometimes I looked into the code, or even I face that issue. It's like no translation. So inside that component or inside the function, okay, I need a translation of a payload to a certain model. I need a translation of input to a certain model. So right now we didn't have that. Just before we didn't have this DSL. Before we didn't have that, but we have that those capabilities also. So it means like I can tag that input. Okay, it's with a some class, and then output with a some class. And I can define those class, okay, config collector, I can define that and then annotate. So what we have done along with the DSL itself, we have created some annotation classes to express that expressions and to define that model, so to name that names, okay. Still it is under experimental, but you can still keep trying, and then you can enhance this framework, okay, altogether, so that it will be a more, our ultimate idea is to reduce a lot of defects and a lot of integration and mediation issues, right? So we can define as a bean, and you can define at the model, even descriptions at the model top, and just refer that input and outputs here. And similarly, you can have a step definition, have a component, and then component can also take input and output. It has a content assist. It knows that what all the input it can take, so that it won't allow you to make wrong here. And finally, this is a DSL. Okay, and another important point I would like to say that right now we are supporting both the functionalities. Okay, even you can model your CBA with traditional JSON or as well as a DSL. Only the difference it's like in a Tasca meta. So in Tasca meta, there is a called extension. If you have a KT extension, if you try to give that, if you give that entity definitions with a particular file, then automatically it assumes that okay, it is not a JSON model. It is a Kotlin model. Okay, it's a dynamic DSL model. And if it is a DSL model, it requires a named version. So that's the reason we are trying to mandate a named version in a Tasca metadata, so that we don't go inside that model file and look for that what is the model name and type. So one way we can avoid a lot of performance issue. Sometimes what happens, model may be corrupted, so in that case we could not look into that model named version. If the JSON is not valid, then we could not look into that model named version. Okay.
Brenda, is that already effective, the template name and version?
Back-end side it is there, but I'm not sure about the front-end. Validation is done or not, yeah.
You said the back-end side, the validation is present?
It's optional. Right now it's option. Once
optional. Okay.
Once everything is fine, then we can make it mandatory. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think right now this is providing the metadata of the blueprint JSON file itself.
That's where we are putting the template name and version.
Currently, yes. But what you're saying is you want to move that to here?
Yeah.
I want to know if that validation has been set or not.
Yeah, I want to know which one should I use. Because here we have it at both places, which is...
Okay, let me take answer that. Okay. So in future it is going to look only for the Tosca meta. Okay. Since I want to support for backward compatibility, that's the reason I'm not removing that. I just if it is a JSON file, it is still goes into that JSON file and looks for that template name and version. And if it is a Kotlin model, then it is trying to look from the Tosca meta itself, because because what happens now, performance perspective, I'm trying to say in a performance perspective. Initially, the design, we had a single model file. That's the reason we used that particular service template file, and then we looked at name and version. And
so, Brenda, can we just look at this metadata and not look at the JSON at all?
Yeah, we can make that. But everyone should accept that. That's the point I'm raising here. Okay, to support that, because no certain, if you try to look at base configuration, okay, Tosca, we don't have this. Okay, we don't have that because it is already referring from that model file, from that entity file, from the model entity file. So once we are ready, or if you try to include, or if you try to migrate that existing blueprint model to support that template name and version here, then automatically I can make that the backend. I can make mandatory option. You are following me, or?
At some point, there is one thing we need to do is we need to make things consistent.
Yeah.
In SDC right now, but maybe it's on our end, right? We have SDNC blueprint name, SDNC blueprint version, SDNC artifact name. In here, the metadata, it's I think a blueprint name, blueprint version.
Yeah.
Now
Here right now it is trying to look in what is the activation blueprint? Yeah, it is trying to look here actually.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
But actually we're calling here template name, template version. So let's try to
move here
to make things consistent. Maybe in SDC.
Frankfurt release.
Yes.
We can say we are only getting things from Tosca metadata.
Right.
But that requires also, we can do that effectively, right? But to move away from SDNC name and model name, model version, that requires that the CDS and the SDC integration within the service of a VNF resource or PNF resource or any other resource, we need to have that reference of what is the...
today it's at the service level?
Today we have it at the resource level.
So, in my VF?
Actually, wait.
No,
yes,
there won't be any change. According to me, there won't be any change in that integration perspective. Only thing is that meta, you want to include these two tags. That's it.
No. There's a different integration in SDC, Brenda. It's not related to CDS. What we did, Serge, we added references of SDNC model, artifact name, artifact version within VNF and PNF templates itself. And we're adding that reference. And SO today and SDNC, they're both referencing that metadata to populate how to interact with CDS.
Okay, got it.
No longer in the kit server metadata, right?
We need we need the metadata now, but we need to move away from the SDNC implementation of using SDNC model name and SDNC model version. We need to have another reference that actually takes the metadata from our packages and embeds that into the VNF or PNF resource or any other resource.
Exactly.
So that's something we can add as a roadmap item, and we can see if we can achieve it.
Yes.
But also the field name should be consistent with what's in your CBA. So you just don't take the value of that and put it on the SDNC name, SDNC model name variable. Rather, you rename the SDNC model name to be your template name and then template version.
So it's absolutely possible. The reason it wasn't possible before, because before we had, from a controller strategy, we had different controller implementations. Now what we're saying is that we're moving to generic controller implementation. We have one instance of CDS itself, and that since we have one instance CDS, we can use just the generic terms of what the model name and model version is. Yeah. We don't have two instances of CDS or three instances of CDS. We have one instance of CDS within ONAP itself. Okay, the only other thing that, Brenda, we might have to do is also, when we provide that SDC reference of what is the model name, what model version is, we have to maybe provide what is the, access point to our blueprint processor itself. So
exactly. By default, it's like a service discovery, right? So we don't want to tag that, right now.
Right now, we don't want to tag it, but at some point we may have to point to which namespace maybe we're using or something, right? That points to which blueprint processor it is.
Even that, we don't want to do it in SDC level itself, or even outside of the system, okay? You can put it in a gateway itself, right, internal to the CDS.
Into a gateway is fine. Into a gateway, I think it could be fine, but there's something that will be in the gateway that will have some reference that says, because I could imagine that if you have different blueprint implementations or different blueprint instances, you might have the same package in two different blueprints that have different content implementation. So we need like a central view. The gateway will need a central view of which blueprint processor to use to kind of pass that information to the right instance of the blueprint processor itself.
Exactly. You are right. But only thing is like we want to stick to the plan. Blueprint name and version should be unique. Okay, even if it is running a same instance or multiple instance, it should be unique, right?
Okay, so then in order for that to be effective, we need a central way.
That's what just before I mentioned that, right? So we need to have we need to have only one master to manage that blueprint for runtime. Okay, rest we can have n number of instances just only looking at file structure. Okay, so in that case, only one instance will be managing the database related activities and then deploying to the file structure. Rest of the things they can refer directly the file structure alone, so it won't manage that database.
Okay. So that means we somehow have to decouple the packages that we store with the blueprint, and separate that from the blueprint processor itself.
So right now we are doing it in a command executor itself, right? If you try to look into that, it shares the same location, same path. Okay, and blueprint processor is managing all those artifacts, but command executor is using those files, right? So similarly, even if you want to build a multiple instance, just only one CDS should manage all those artifacts, and rest other thing just to only execute. It's like a worker node. Okay, only thing is it should act like a worker node.
Okay, so let me make sure I capture. So we said CDS and SDC integration for CBA package reference based on the Tosca metadata.
Yeah.
Ensure the CBA packages are retrieving the reference from Tosca metadata. Alexi, I guess we may need some migration or something that moves away from the current implementation of metadata to the Tosca file?
For our stuff internally?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be able to migrate the time being. This is a very minor one, so I think we can take the hit whenever this is ready.
From a JSON file to Tosca. Okay, anything else? I think that was mainly it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, and the UI, CDS UI should enforce the population using the Tosca meta file.
While we're at it, I think we need to make those two fields consistent as well. Like the field name in the blueprint should be reflected into SDNC and then subsequently into SO and everywhere else. I think we should not keep calling it SDNC modeling.
Absolutely. That was a hack that we did.
Template is the right name.
It's not the right name. CBA model name or model version.
We want to come up with the field first before we do the migration, because I think if we go, like, I was just purely going with what Brenda had in his CBA metadata name, but I mean, maybe we need to come up with a better name here before we actually go and move that.
Should the CBA model name, model version?
Yeah.
Brenda, how much impact would that be if we change them?
And no issue.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Brenda, just add that to your plan, and we can this part of the we can add for Frankfurt roadmap itself.
Yep. And how much time that I have?
What else do you want to discuss?
Yeah, just a 5 minutes discussion that I want to make.
Yeah, take it, because the next thing we want to discuss is the CBA blueprints processor open API itself. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just 5 minutes. Okay. So another important experimental things that along with the DSL we have done it, so workflow. What we have done is, so we have built a high performance workflow engine, but still under test. Okay, let me explain that. Okay. So one workflow service with actor model completely. So blueprint workflow we built that, so which has a node execution skip node, but right now we have concentrated on only the node execution, the skip and terminate. Later we will think about that. So we built that which process a parallel execution also, so you can execute in a parallel way. And how it should be modeled, the model is pretty straightforward. So it's an imperative blueprint model that I could say. It's a full-fledged imperative model. Initially what we used for a workflow, we had two options. One is direct node execution. If it is a single step, okay, then we directly hit that node, and based on that node type or based on the target definition, if the target is node template component type, then we execute directly the node template component. And if it is of a directed graph, then we execute the directed graph, right? And now this supports a complete modeling. Okay, so in that model itself, you can completely tell that what sequence of flow that you want to execute. Okay, so one example, let me take this case also.
Hey Brenda, quick question here. Do we have a model today for workflows itself?
Yeah.
You know, in the components we have a model for, let's say, resource assignment in that folder, right?
Yeah.
Do we have a model for workflow? Like, what are the possible capabilities of a workflow?
Yeah.
Outside the CBA, outside of the CBA.
Outside that CBA, possible workflows means I could not get your question. Okay, go ahead.
You know, like with workflow actions, you have like steps, activities, input, output, right?
Yeah.
That's a model. Do we have that as a model itself in the common component definitions?
If someone could translate that question in a simpler way, or even I could not get that, Yuri. Yeah.
Can you go to the component section? In the component section, you have a model catalog. Then you should have something that talks about the component node types, definition types. Look at the definition types.
Okay, here?
Definition types, yep. Open that, starter types.
Okay.
You have node types here, right?
Yeah.
Do you have something for workflows as well?
No, that's what I'm trying to say. Workflow, it's not a source, or it's not a node template, or not a definition actually. It's a part of a model itself. It's a part of a template itself. Okay. You are getting my point, right? So it's a part of a model itself. Okay. So that is the reason. So it won't be a node type. Okay. It is not a node type. It is a one of. It's similar to node type. Okay. It's like another definition similar to node type, right? Inside the model.
Right. Okay. So it has steps, inputs, and outputs, right?
Right.
So my question is, are we planning to add anything to, like create a new node type, or maybe add a new folder for workflow capabilities?
No. That's the reason I'm trying to say that. Okay. So it is not we are not going to add that, right? So why? Because then steps and that's pointing to the steps, it is not always the same. It is not like a reusable in a perspective. Okay, it's like a, because node name you can come up with that. The component name, here the point what you're trying to bring, it's like you can build any workflow with any name, and then you can model any component with any name. Okay, so that's a concept we are trying to bring that. So in that case, and next point, it's like, is there any valid reason to build a reusable workflow in this case or not? No. Why? Because most of the workflow components, whatever we are dealing with, it's not more than 3 or 4 activities or 4 steps inside that. Okay. So if you try to feel that we are trying to build a execution of 10 or 20, then at that time we can think of a reusable perspective, and even that reusable also may not work, because if you are trying to include 10 or 20, then it may not be the same name that we are going to follow for that other workflows. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, it's like it's very easy to define that workflow, but still I will consider that. Okay, your point actually. Okay.
But the only reason I ask is because we always, let's say, have resource assignment, config deploy, config assign. These are reusable actions. Okay, they're the same orchestration. The only thing that changes the template that we use for executing that capability. Okay. So that's why I was asking this question itself.
Yeah, you are.
Because when we do the UI, when we use the UI to build our JSON blueprint definition, it would be helpful to have a model for the workflow that just defines inputs and outputs and steps itself to build that package.
That's why, no, you want to think in a model level. Instead of thinking in a workflow level, you want to think in a starter package level itself.
It's starter package itself. Yes, I agree.
If you think in that level, then that will work very smooth. It's in a fluid. It will work in a fluid. Okay, but workflow alone you can't take it. Why? Because that name and it won't match. Most of the component names it won't match. Okay, that is the reason. And moreover, this workflow, it's because it is associated with a dynamic data type creation also. So in that case, the dynamic data type name and workflow name and all those properties, it should match. Okay, there is some integration and some validation and some linkage that we need to provide there. Okay, that's the reason, and it's very simple also, pretty straightforward. That's what I'm trying to explain, that we are not going to have 3 or 4 nodes inside in a single template, or in a workflow. We are not going to have not more than the 3 steps, right, for a particular action, 3 or 4 steps. Okay,
so why don't you go ahead, Brenda, with the imperative implementation, and then we can discuss it offline as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Initially, we had only 1 step. Okay, so it talks about only one. So either it may be a component call or a directed DG call directly here. Right now, we can also define multiple steps also. You can see that multiple steps on success and on failure you can define. So in that way, it is very easy to define here. And another example, it's in a DSL way also you can easily define. One good example, let me show that. DSL way, it's very simple. If you try to look it in a JSON way, it looks like a little bit hard. But in a DSL way, it looks pretty simple, right? In this case, see here. So this is a workflow. I'm trying to do that config collect and audit. So it's input and output, step 1 I'm trying to do. And then success. If it is a success, what is the next node? Okay, that I'm going to have the next node. So similarly, you can build that. You can build a multiple steps, okay, and then you can make use of the service workflow service that we have built. It's experimental. Still, you may hit that issue, but you can try that. You can check that. It's completely built on actor model. With a mailbox and a message-driven functionality. It's a complete event-driven. Not event-driven. It's a message-driven. Okay, other word for event-driven. We are not using event-driven anymore. We are using message-driven. Message-driven architecture completely. In that way, what I'm trying to say is it's like a complementary, or it's like an alternate solution for a directed graph execution. So we don't want to jump from CBA model to directed graph model. So inside the same model itself we can model, and then with a more performance perspective and parallel processing also. Even you can slowly migrate your DG to here also, or else you can still use a traditional DG. What's another plan? What we are trying to think about, like since Silly and other things, it's tightly integrated with ODL and other stuff, what we are planning to use I'm planning to think it's we can take a directed graph XML and then we can translate into that underground model. Okay, on runtime itself, we can take that model and convert that model so that we can use this runtime. Okay, instead of using a Silly runtime, we can make use of this runtime. So in that case, we can avoid Silly dependencies itself altogether completely. Even you can have a DG model, okay, with the underlying workflow, our new workflow engine capability. Any questions? Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks, Tim.
I have a question on the DSL part. So who's is this targeting actually? Is it more of a developer part of developing CDS, or the end user are expected to learn Kotlin or a half Kotlin, or not sure?
DSL, it's not a Kotlin. Okay, DSL, it's nothing but the configuration. There is a difference between coding and configuration. If you try to look into that DSL, it's not a coding, it's a configuration. It's similar to that JSON with the more editor support, and it's the same thing, right? So here, if you try to correlate the model, see here we have a workflow, and here we have a workflow. Only thing is like the structure and content, it is going to give the content assist extra.
It's much more readable. I totally agree. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
We should look at the tooling to make this portable, or?
I think there's also, I want to say that the use cases that you may have also might drive you to have a different approach of defining your packages. So I think that what Brenda was describing is that this model also works very well if you have dynamic content that you want to generate, where this can be kind of done by developers and produced itself, versus the other model is more tied towards operations user.
So which one will we document both? Or?
Both. We're adding capabilities for both, and it's up to you for your use case to define which one you want to use, right? So in what Brenda has described already is that there is a mechanism, task and metadata, that if you want to point to a Kotlin file that describes this DSL definition, you have that, or you can do JSON, so you can do both.
So I think I have a related question, much summarized. So there's two ways to do things here.
Yes.
Like to do what? Create?
It's basically creating packages that describe your provisioning and configuration management steps.
Right.
So in a modeled way.
So is it like blueprint?
They're both blueprints.
Yep.
They're both packages.
Two ways to make a blueprint.
Yes.
It's really just another syntax to write the same thing that JSON was doing.
The end result.
It's much
the end result will be, well, it sounds from what Brenda has described also, this could be a more powerful way to do certain activities, so it might have more capabilities.
End result is the same, except the new way is maybe better.
The end result is the same, yeah.
Powerful.
But with YAML, what we could do is put that quite easily in the blueprint, and then let so if we structure it well enough, then the code will be one to execute the YAML, essentially. Wouldn't that be more closer to self-serve?
Oh, you're talking about the
testing.
UAT testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, UAT testing is separate. It's testing your packages, right?
Right.
This is more of creation of the blueprint. I mean, the syntax you create the syntax that you're using to create your UAT testing, YAML is one use case. Another use case that is recommending is DSL. So we should see which one makes more sense, easier to use and implement.
Okay. So, but this one, okay, I have to read more on this one, but it seems like what the difference that I see over there, it was a lot easier to follow in terms of you're doing your put, and then you're requiring 201 in that example, and then you're...
It's easier to read.
Yeah,
easier to read, yes.
Easy read, and most important thing, it's you can easily detect that any breakage or any issues, right? The compilation or model or spelling or any issues upfront itself. Okay, I can do that migration very easily also.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
So, Brenda, one question, can our current JSON files be also automatically converted to this type of models? Or
yeah,
backward?
I have plan and then I have POC also. It's not full-fledged, but once we get a time, I think I can include here. But already it's done, yeah, mostly it's done. Only thing is it's under experimental, right, before publishing to the community. So we want to do certain things internally, whether we are doing right or wrong. Okay, so that's the reason, and even I'm saying that even DSL itself, DSL and workflow, it's experimental. Most probably we can officially announce later point of time. Still, you guys feel free to try this and then just provide comments on top of that in terms of naming conventions. Okay, how we want to use that. Yeah. Answering to your question, Yuri, yeah, it's there. It's like automatic conversion is already available there, but not in ONAP. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
How compatible is it with Vim? Because we have some Vim users.
Stop living in the past, Seth.
Living in the future. Have you planned on looking at supporting this with language server protocol? You can actually have completion, validation, and stuff like that.
Sorry, it's a question to me or?
Because right now it kind of depends on IntelliJ doing the heavy lifting or validating this DSL, right?
Actually, it's like not a heavy lifting. It's only thing is you are trying to do a model, right? So only that CBA file that you are going to do that. Other than that, it is going to manage with the dependency, right? So your IntelliJ will be a simple. It's like one editor and or whatever maybe in future if even Visual Code Studio, it can also support, right, the Kotlin. The only thing is you want to include the Maven dependency of our blueprint processor, right? Once you include that, then automatically it provides out of box itself, it provides a validation, out of box it provides a content assist and a lot more stuff. So in that case, it is going to be simple, but only thing is you want to choose that which editor that you are going to use that. And even we are transforming all our network engineers to a developer, even Python developers. If you are able to do Python, then it is very easy to Kotlin because Kotlin is a type specific and even you can avoid a lot of defects in production. If it is not a type safe system like a Python, or another drawback with a Python, it's not a type safe, right? So in that case, VNF owner design with their own data type in their mind, but the problem when we hit into the production or when we hit into that cases which we couldn't cover in test cases, then it's too costly. That's the reason, no. One more advantage with Kotlin, it's a functional, more functional, and it's a type safe system and even null safe system also. So that way, I could say if people are ready to do with Python, then they can do very easily with the Kotlin.
All right, any other questions for Brenda? Thanks, Brenda, for the presentation.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. I took 15 minutes extra. Sorry for that, yeah.
Ali, next topic?
Yes. Next topic will be the last one, the generation of OpenAPI Google Protobuf specification for CBA packages.
Okay, so I guess we have the main thing here is like we have a lot of clients that we want to integrate with CDS itself, and today we don't generate a package OpenAPI spec or Protobuf spec, and we need that capability itself. This is going to be used for, let's say, the CDS UI for runtime activities, or it can be used by clamp team or policy team to kind of get exposure of what are for a given package, what are the available actions and payloads that can be executed itself. So that's the main driver for this specific requirement. And we wanted to see how can this be introduced in the CBA package itself. Alexi, Brenda, can you guys provide some direction on this specific topic?
And just before, how this integrates with policy, gRPC, clamp?
It integrates with clamp. Clamp UI, it has ability to display for a given CDS active what are the actions that are available, and it can also render then the UI to display what are the inputs that are required to be displayed to the user, so the user can basically populate that information via either input or there's a way to kind of display how those set of parameters can be resolved through source capabilities itself.
Earlier, I think, earlier in the day we were questioning the need for the distribution of the CBA. This could be a good example of that. So essentially, you distribute your CBA and then Clamp will extract that and then see what's in there and all that. So, yeah.
Okay.
So it would be distributed through the map and then they will pick it up.
So I know initially we had things like Swagger-based integration, but since we're using gRPC, we want to go to the Google Protobuf or Open API spec. Brenda, Alexi, is there something missing that we can get this?
I'd rather let Brenda talk. He has done some work already on this. I don't know.
Yeah. Alexi, if you don't have it, then I can talk. So what my initial thought, it's a templating engine. Only thing is we want to create a templating engine which understands the CBA model and converts into the corresponding expected model. It's like a transforming model. So we want to create a one simple template which can render that. That is a thing, and that process where it should involve, it should include in that enrichment process. So enrichment process is the where we are trying to enrich the model, and along with that we can generate the spec generation also. So we can have the spec generation. We can model along with that model somehow. If we try to define that what all the expected model output model that we need to have, so that we can based on that enrichment properties, okay, we can generate the model and then put under the spec. So we can create our one more folder of specifications in a package in the CBA itself, and then we can put that corresponding, whether it's Open API spec or gRPC spec or simple. For a simple perspective, we already had some work in progress code, and after that we left. We felt that it is not immediate, it is not urgent, and then we left there itself. That's all I have with respect to this topic.
Brenda, can you provide the path where that code is as a reference?
Yeah. But that implementation, it's a pure API-based implementation. Underlying, I used some of Swagger version, which is a 2.x version. The problem is we should not use that Swagger version. We should use a templating version. Why? Because sometimes the client may expect a different version. Sometimes client may expect Open API spec. Sometimes client may expect a 2.x version of specification. And so in that case, no, we should not rely on any of the models or any of the API provided implementation. So in that case, we want to come up with a template-driven generation. So in that case, we can generate any model, any type, or any version with respect to any type. So only thing is we want to create a processor, or template engine for a particular version. That's the only thing. And then during that enrichment process, we can inject that which version we want to generate or which type we want to generate. Let me give that some code. That's not the final code that I don't want to put that code there, because that is a pure API driven, or it uses the underlying Swagger API. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a code. It's a pretty old code, actually. Not to merge also. Alexei, you would like to add some more points?
Sorry?
Do you like to add some more points here?
Do you want to add any feedback?
Oh, no. No, this is exactly what I was expecting. So.
But I'm not sure whether we need it immediately or not, this kind of implementation.
Well, I don't know neither, but the only, when we were talking earlier about, the service mesh and the authentication is if we have that, then we can have very distinct APIs.
No, that's one thing. The other thing, we have the clamp UI. We don't want to hard code our actions with the clamp UI. We want them to be extracted.
Clamp UI could extract them from the CBA as CDS would.
As what?
CDS would do. The clamp UI, they could extract all the information from the CBA and generate whatever is to be generated.
Exactly. That's another point I'm trying to bring. And even they have the Tasca rendering also, right? The clamp, whether they have the Tasca rendering?
They do? Policy they have it. Clamp, that's a question I guess we can check.
Okay. So it's more or less we are trying to do the same, but little tweak that we are trying to make here. In this case, no, we tweaked that Tasca model for output because the Tasca doesn't have output model. But in our case, we have a workflow output model.
Yeah, actually, Brenda, I noticed an issue with the step output, okay?
Yeah.
We provide just the step output of the last node, not of all of them. And the way it's constructed, because I went in the code trying to fix this, I don't think it's an easy thing to solve.
A little bit explain, Alexei, just I could not get that. Yeah. If possible, if you could share your screen.
You want me to explain again?
Oh, what is the issue?
Okay, the issue is the following. I have a workflow, say, with 3 steps, okay? Now, when I'm executing this workflow, the output, so the step output that you provide in the REST call, okay, is going to be the step output of the last node in the workflow.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
will tell that. Okay. The step output, it's not exposable. The step still is not exposable.
So that's exactly my point. So I've seen this in the output, right? When I make a request today, I have step output in the response I get. The issue is it's incomplete. So I went to try to fix it and to make it complete, but then it's way too complex to do that because of the way we're doing the modeling.
Exactly. Okay, let me tell that the point. Okay, so whatever the step we have, it's just for internal perspective. Okay, maybe we can have 2 different models that REST API level model we can have that, and then internal model we can have it. That's one way. Why? Because I wanted to avoid one more transformation. That's the reason we left over that. Instead of that, we can put a step node ignore or transient some JSON annotation is there, so that it won't serialize and deserialize that step value, and then it will return.
Yeah. Maybe as easy as this, but yeah, I wanted to bring your attention on this because,
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, somehow now, long back, I noticed that, and I missed to communicate that actually. Okay, so we should not use that. And during the test case also, I think while doing the UAT test cases also, I saw expect for tested step data also. It is not there. We should not do that. Okay. So that we want to avoid. And other than that, what other issues? That's the thing, Alexei.
Sorry?
Other than that,
no. That's it.
That's it. Okay. So we should not expose that. Answering to your question, no, we should not expose the step data.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I mean, actually, no. I was wondering if you had an idea to expose all the step output, or we don't expose at all.
No, we don't, because that is a dynamic one, and then to capture that last transaction. Anyhow, we are cloning inside that. The step value we are cloning, and then we are sending back, and then we are returning back.
I've seen that in the code. That's why I thought it was complex. Okay, thank you. We can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we go back to the clamp UI discussion, so we have right now 2 different DSL ways of expression of the package, right? Definition, and we have the Tasca base. So if we go with this approach, it would, how do we?
Yeah, that's okay, Yuri. We can also make that. That's not an issue. Okay. Only thing is we need to set up a workforce to do that. Yeah. We can generate the spec. It's very easy.
It's generate the
complex.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, what you're going to end up with is the Tosca.
No.
Yes. The DSL generate Tosca. That's the whole purpose of the DSL that Brenda has created, is to generate the Tosca. So if CLAMP wants to integrate, better for CLAMP to ingest the Tosca.
So you're saying the current APIs would return you the Tosca form, not the current DSL form? When
yes.
you do the
some standard format we want to return back. So whoever wants to consume that, they can translate into that certain way. Yeah.
Brenda, can you repeat that?
You repeat, yes.
Brenda?
Yeah, okay. So we will stick to some standard model, okay, that output model, okay, we can stick to that. And then client, whoever wants to consume in a different way and however they want to interact with us, they can use or they can transform to their own model and then they can make use of that, right?
Right, but I think all the consumer of CDS should leverage the Tosca, not the DSL. The DSL is for the users of CDS just to, maybe if you want to simplify the coding.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is just for CDS users. This external system, they should integrate with the Tosca modeling directly.
Yeah, exactly. Only thing is I'm trying to talk about, like, we tweak the Tosca model. So that's the reason now I'm asking, is there anyone who works on that Tosca specifications? So in that case, we can add that output model, okay, in that workflow output, right? So only what we have done is we tweaked that Tosca specification basically. Just we introduce output, okay. If you try to look into the Tosca doesn't have a workflow output itself. So what we have done is for our functionality perspective, we made we added one more property called output in the Tosca model. That's the reason I'm trying to say that. So if we have that particular output model to be part of Tosca, then I think it becomes a standard once again. It becomes a standard so that we can generate a Tosca and then we can deliver to all clients.
But let me go back to the original question. Brenda, if you have a DSL definition, when you do the get of the artifacts, does it return you the DSL definition or does it return you the Tosca definition itself?
No, artifact is nothing but a text format, okay? That API returns the content of that particular artifact, okay? It is not a DSL anymore. Let me talk about that. Let me clarify that. DSL, it's a modeling language which we use internally, okay? It is not the language to expose outside or expose, okay? It is not a spec, right?
It's not
even that model, whatever we use, the JSON model, it is not a spec itself, okay? It is a model which only CDS can understand that, right?
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to bring. So it means like it is a one more model, DSL is a one more model which only CDS can understand that. If you want to expose to that outside world or if client wants to understand that what model that we are trying to use, so in that case, I believe that right assumption or right one I could say it's a open API or even Tosca. Okay, two things that we can make use of it. But the problem is like if you generate an open API spec, then people always think it's a REST call. Always it is going to be a REST call, right?
Yeah.
So that is the point. I don't want to do that. Okay, REST Swagger or any other implementation. So what they will do, simply they will take that Swagger generations and then they will make a call. Which they always feel that it's a synchronous call. Okay, most of the things that we are dealing with, it's asynchronous call, right? So, and even protobuf also we can't generate that most of the use cases because many clients, they don't understand the protobuf itself. Only if it is a gRPC client, they can understand. So in that case, it may be useful if you deliver a protobuf. Okay, that way it's useful. But we can't generate a UI from the protobuf, right? So. And alternate option is a common model. It's a Tosca model. We can generate and then we can distribute that. But the problem is like even that is also selective clients can generate their UI. Okay, like a policy. And even I'm not sure about WID or any other clients they can generate from the Tosca model.
The thing, CLAMP today, I think from what I understood from Rashmi, is already able to ingest the policy Tosca representation and display the UI out of it. So CLAMP...
But they have their custom implementations.
Sorry?
They have a custom Tosca implementation, I believe.
Yeah, as we do, right? But if we provide them basically the CDS Tosca parser or whatever you call this, then from the Tosca, they would get the POJO, and with the POJO, they can create the UI dynamically. And I think this is pretty straightforward.
One thing that we can check, Alexei and Yuri, we can whether WIT can render that OpenSpec API. But the protocol may be underlying invocation protocol. If they can choose a gRPC, then it will be good. So in that case, no, it is pretty straightforward, right? OpenSpec API we can generate, and then we can give only the JSON schema, right?
Oh, okay. So that was the idea behind the OpenSpec Open API spec.
Yeah.
So then you have a YAML or something like that other users can ingest to create a client. Ah, that's a good idea. But then no more Tosca, right?
Yeah. That's the reason. No, only the issue is like people should remember that they are not going to access through REST. That's the only point that we want to make sure all the client to understand.
So what I was saying that we should use gRPC because we want everyone to talk gRPC.
You're right. But so gRPC is so yeah, okay, now I understand the probab thing he was saying. Because gRPC, now we have the model, but we can't generate anything out of the Tosca for gRPC. Or if we want to do that, then we need to custom code it, and it's going to be a little bit cumbersome to do and to maintain. Because we could do something like from the blueprint to like, I don't know, a gRPC client, but I don't know we want to do that.
Yeah, better one thing, Alexei, we can stick to that OpenSpec API generation and leave to the client. Right, that's it.
Yeah. Rashmi, what do you think?
I think there are two options. We should bring that to client team and see what they want.
That's a wise feedback, yes.
Because they're already ingesting Tosca YAML.
You're right.
I'm not sure if it was possible to have it.
No, that's a yes, very good point. Yes.
Unless we, from CSP, we have to print one way or the other.
Well, it's a very valid point what you're saying. I think we should bring that to them, and they can decide what they want. I mean, and we have the flexibility. I think we can offer either DMAP, either gRPC, either REST.
REST we don't want to do.
I know. We can try to guide the decision towards what we care about more, but I think it's good to offer them to be flexible to them.
So the options are OpenAPI and Google and gRPC.
Yeah. Okay. But OpenAPI is REST.
It can be both, right?
I don't think you can get OpenAPI for gRPC. OpenAPI for me is REST. Brenda, do you have? Can you generate a gRPC client using OpenAPI?
No, we can generate. It's not a direct. We need to code for that. Yeah, we can generate that. That's not an issue.
Okay. Also, okay. Cool.
That's not an issue. Only thing is like how many specs, because later point at time we may ending up into generating huge and large number of specs. That we don't want to do that. We want to have only one spec generations, and who are clients, they can generate their own from there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And then one more thing, I don't want to load that CPA package. It's like I don't want to increase the size of the CPA package itself. Another thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
So we'll take that back to Clamp and get the feedback. So gRPC and Tosca. And gRPC is also much more smaller size.
Yeah, it's way faster. gRPC is way better.
No, the content size is smaller than you would do.
Yeah. The packet on the wire is smaller.
Yes.
The way it's compressing, smaller.
Okay, so let's.
And one more thing, along with that, I'm asking one more question. Alexei, it's whether we could able to launch REST and gRPC both together? Yes,
please. Enable that. I mean, everywhere we have both actually for us internally.
Even the ports, different ports or same port?
It would be even better if it, I think it depends. Sorry. I was going to answer too fast. I do think it depends. I think it's good to configure, to have this configurable.
Okay.
But I know where you're going. You want one native thread for both servers?
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe we can have that, but it should be configurable, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fine.
we might want to have 2 ports for some certain deployments.
Yeah, or 2 ports it's fine, but it's like not a 2 different NetI ports actually. That's the point I want to. It may be a proxy port.
Yeah, we need to look. I can't answer it like this. I need more understanding of what are the implications here.
Okay, whether you are creating another instance of listener, NetI listener, or it's like you are having only one NetI listener and then having a proxy.
Okay. But how then do you going to see if it's gRPC traffic or
because no
HTTP?
underlying API invocation is the same, right? So listener you can have even you can listen for 2 different endpoints, but you are not creating an instance of the server. That's the point I'm trying to bring. Okay, whether you are creating a 2 server instance or just 2 listeners that you are trying to create. Yeah.
So do you know how to do that? So you have 1 server with 2 listeners?
I didn't explore much, but just I'm asking that. Okay, if that is the case, we can explore and then we can do that. We want to do that. Otherwise, no. It creates a 2 different server. It means like a 2 server instance running on a single container. But
last time we talked about this, I think it was complicated to get there.
Okay. Then it's fine. Yeah.
We can look. If we found something, then we can do. But I think it was the challenge was the technology, not much the rest.
Sure. And another thing, the similar point, it's like Kafka also we want optimization there. It's like just we want to remove the Spring layer completely altogether. Okay, for Kafka, Kafka listener.
Honestly, Kafka. So I was talking this morning about this. We've done this, but actually right now we don't utilize it. And if you have ideas for enhancement, you can go ahead, but
I have that. Even I can forward that link also. So in that case, no, you don't want to have a Spring overhead on top of that. Instead, you can use a Kafka stream directly, and using that server startup, you can listen for the port directly and then invoke that underlying code. So in that case, you don't want to have that.
Send the doc over. We can look into this, but I don't know that we'll implement though.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I think
we've covered.
Sorry? Well, I know Eric might have some questions we could go through, or not question, but more about, sorry, I put you on the spot. Regarding what you told me about the user story.
Yeah.
Or maybe not now. I don't know what you prefer.
I mean, I can show you the Jira.
But do you? Okay. Or we can just talk generally speaking about integration of CDS with multi-cloud.
Why don't we look at the user story?
Okay.
And then we can, within the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Or we call it a day. I mean.
No, let's look at it.
Let's pull it. I mean, this isn't my story. This is Lucas or somebody.
Yeah.
But it was. I think it's relevant to like part of why I'm here, just to learn CDS is to do this. Somebody got.
Yeah, you can take a presentation.
The more basic questions, I think, for my own offline education is top 3 or 4 or 5 links, videos, etc. that would be useful to ramp up again.
Okay.
There's so many out there, but which ones are better?
Yeah, the links, maybe I can share with you the top level documentation link. And in there you'll have all the videos, all the user guides, all the...
I think we could send that over as well.
Maybe you have, I don't know, who has an invite with everyone?
We didn't have an invite.
Oh, we don't?
Let's put the links in the wiki page, and everybody can access directly through there.
Which wiki?
The
agenda wiki page.
Also new.
Just like a prerequisite.
Okay, I'll put the link in the page.
Prerequisites coming through. You should have watched it yesterday, but...
Yeah.
Tomorrow. To come tomorrow.
Already you have homework in the morning reception.
There'll be a quiz at the end.
watch all and read all night.
I've read all this, I've read all of the material before, like, but sometimes it just kind of
No,
goes over the head.
it takes, I would say, maybe 20 times to read it, 100 times.
There's so much of it by the time you end up.
No, this idea is completely different than what we have done before, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can see the screen?
So, yeah, anyway, and again, I didn't write this, but Lucas, I think, wrote this. So maybe you guys can take a look. Not that I can necessarily talk to it all.
So basically, this story talks about integration with multi-cloud for doing vFirewall Kubernetes instantiation and post-instantiation itself. Now, my only question is when we deploy the Kubernetes VNFs or CNFs into, Kubernetes itself, right? We have an instance created.
Right.
The netconf is enabled with it, and we can communicate with that CNF using netconf, or?
Yeah, actually, I was just testing that out recently. At least in my setup, I was able to run like the sample vFire closed loop. So
you were able to do like a reconfiguration?
Yeah, I could set the traffic high or low, and then the policy would come in and reset it. So I had to, do a few manual steps to get the netconf, but.
Did you use FC for that reconfiguration, or was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Standard. Pretty much. Now I didn't do it using clamp.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It was kind of the old legacy way apparently, but.
So right now, I think the only thing is.
The one thing missing in the current examples that are out in demo is it doesn't have the service in the Helm chart defined to expose the netconf, but I've added that, and we'll add that. But that seemed to work. The best events are coming out from the firewall, getting received by the CA collector, that kind of thing. But that's just that. I this is much more detailed.
Right, and I think the only other thing we don't want to do preloads. I think this implementation is based on preloads, right? You have to provide the instrument.
No, I think the idea here is.
Well, the idea is we want to.
No, the current implementation.
Oh.
The current demos do preload, but yeah, we want to get to this point.
Okay, so.
So part of it is to understand CDS well enough to know what needs to be done to get to that point.
Okay, so I think for the most part, we're going to use the same building blocks we use for like heap parameters.
Right.
Okay, so we have the building blocks for doing resource assignment, the creation instead of going through MSO or SO to OpenStack, we'll go SO to multi-cloud for creation of the pod of vFirewall.
Right.
And the only thing we have to decide is how the content, who's retrieving the content that needs to be passed to, the content that is dynamically allocated and then passed to the Helm itself. Who's going to retrieve that? Is that going to be a SO or clamp? That's the question I think I have. And the only other question I have is that SO today doesn't pass the actual Helm chart, right? The Helm chart is stored where?
Yeah, it's the Helm chart gets distributed from, it's kind of a. This current thing is basically, it's a heat, it's a minimal heat.
You have a
package.
Yes.
with the Helm chart attached as an artifact, and that artifact, so heat goes to like SO and everybody like normal, and then the Helm chart goes straight to like the multi-cloud. It's got a database in there with stashing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think one potential issue, parameters don't. The heat parameters are not being used.
So let me ask one more question. In OpenStack we have multiple VF modules, like vFirewall, VLB, DNS, and then multiple VF modules.
Right. Like in your CDS example, right?
In the OpenStack example, yes.
Yeah, the OpenStack.
Now, in Helm, do we have the same type of
How do you compose a service?
Deployment, yeah.
You have chart and subchart.
Do we consider each Helm as a deployment?
The Helm chart will create the deployment.
Like,
Or one.
okay, so that's
The current example is one, I think it's one Helm chart with sub-Helm charts for like the sync and the firewall.
Okay.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good.
I mean, it's one.
So that means
You have one top level
One top level,
and 3 or 4
internal.
internal.
So that means that when SO does the orchestration, it should do the orchestration this module for each of the subcharts. There's one for the VNF and each for the subcharts to generate that final content.
So if you go, I shared you a link, Eric,
Okay.
on Rocket Chat. I've seen you were connected. And in this link, if you go under ONAP specific workflow in the middle of the page, on the right.
Further right, all the way towards the end, yeah.
Just if you scroll down a little bit. Okay, so here I'm explaining, this is good. I'm explaining how it works today for SO with HIP, okay, because we're leveraging the SO building block, and I'm not sure whether for multi-cloud and Kubernetes you're leveraging these building blocks as well.
We
to do the instantiation.
haven't yet fully tested or debugged with like the GR API, which that's definitely something.
Yeah. Because the way it works, I can explain the way it works for HIP, and so you can understand the way it could work with the Helm, is that when SO receives a request, it's going to do the decomposition, and it's going to see what service I need to work with, how many VNF it has, and how many VF modules each VNF has. And then SO is going to trigger as part of the macro flow. Are you familiar with the macro flows?
I've heard the term.
Okay, good. The goal of the macro flow is to do end-to-end workflow. So, the a la carte, for instance, if you need to instantiate the VF module with the a la carte, well, you need to create the service, then you need to create the VNF, then you need to create the VF module, right?
Yeah, that's the mode I've always used so far.
So that's the mode we hate.
I don't like it particularly, but.
So then macros came in Casablanca. The macro, what they allow to do is to basically aggregate a bunch of building blocks in order to orchestrate end-to-end for your service creation and for your service. So it will first assign your service, then assign the VNFs, then assign the VF module. Then it will create the service, create the VNF, create the VF module, then it will activate. And so one click, and does all of this. If you have 10 VNF, and each VNF has 10 VF module, the one click will take care of all of them.
Click on what?
On API call in SO.
Like a postman.
Yeah, or like a Vid query.
Did they do it?
Yeah, Vid does it.
Oh.
Vid supports the macro.
You look at macro and it's a chain of execution.
And so as part of this macro, you have this assigned building block. And this assigned building block is going to be run for the service, the VNF, and the VF module. And the assigned building block in the macro is the one that goes to GR API in SDNC. And so in GR API for SDNC, what we support today at the VNF and VF module level. So at service level, we don't do any assignment. There is a flow in SDNC, but I don't know exactly what it does. But at VNF and VF module level, the assignment of SDNC will basically go back in CDS, leveraging this. If you look at the ONAP specific workflow here, the resource assignment workflow, that you have the tab right open on this. And if you scroll down, you'll see the whole explanation of this resource assignment workflow, how it works, how to implement it, blah, blah, blah. So this is how we do the assignment of all the HIP environment parameters. The only goal of this resource assignment action to CDS, whether it's at VNF level or VF module level, is to resolve all the parameters that we require to instantiate. The reason why we have a VNF level is if there are resources that need to be shared across the VS module, then you need to resolve it, the layer above. And so the concepts, whether it's hit or helm, should be the exact same, right? And so the way SO does it today is, of course, it's going to, right now, at the assignment step, SO doesn't care about hit or anything, right? It's just a bunch, it's resolving the template that we put in CDS for the resource assignment. The template, if you scroll down a little bit, or if you click on the template, the resource, or scroll down just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Can you go up, please? Maybe I hide the. Yes, a bit more up. Stop. Or no? Can you? Oh, okay. It's missing probably. Or no? Can you go in the modeling concept template, maybe?
I'm trying to find the composition diagram.
Yes, because, sorry, I've redone the doc lately and I don't know where I put things.
Modeling concepts right here.
Yeah, he clicked. Ah, no, it's not here. Okay.
What are you looking for?
I want to explain the relationship between the template for resource assignment and the heat environment param. So that relationship should be the exact same for...
Okay, so we can look at the firewall example.
Yeah, but that's what I've done. I just sent the link to Eric.
Okay.
Rocket Chat. If you can open that link, it would maybe... Yes. Because this is important for the use case that we are talking about. If you scroll down, or if on the right, you can go to... Yeah, it's okay. Go down. You're going to get there very soon. Yep, that one. Yes. So here, this is the understanding of how you see a heat environment parameter gets resolved with CDS, okay? But during the assign step that I mentioned.
Right.
But whether it's a heat environment parameter or whether it's a helm value YAML file parameter, the way to do the whole shebang here is agnostic to heat or helm. The point is, it will store the result in MDSAR. Like, the name of my parameter is Joe and the value is Bob, and in the value YAML file, I have a parameter named Joe, and so I'm going to retrieve its value from MDSAR and it's going to be Bob. So that's what SO does. Right.
Well, let me just add that SO is orchestrating your heat stuff. So if you have multiple VNF components, it will do that entire orchestration for VNF service, VNF, and each of the VF modules we have. So the main question here would become, like, when we do Helm deployments of these use cases, is it one Helm or is it multiple Helm deployments that we do?
So it's one Helm.
If it's one Helm,
with
then
subcharts that I understand.
But if it's one Helm and one subchart, that means that we deploy only that Helm content one time.
But I think it's, kind of newish to Kubernetes as well in charts. But I understand it, it's one set of charts. And I don't think they're actually deploying it with Helm, but it's packaged as Helm.
Oh, they don't deploy with Helm?
I don't think so. I think they have some other API. I think, but it's being packaged up as a Helm chart.
Okay.
And so it's like firewall, and then there's like subdirectories for the.
So if it's just one package, my question becomes, if we do like scale out use case, how does that work if it's just one Helm package? Because
well, I don't know if that's a requirement. I think that was on Lucas's list there.
But you can deploy a subchart by just enabling one subchart, or you don't specify, it will deploy the whole. You can, even though it's in the same chart.
The scale out would be entirely different on the Kubernetes. You wouldn't want to manually instruct Okay, scaling out, you would
Because-
instead rely on Kubernetes to scale out the pods.
The way it works today with MSO, the SO and OpenStack is that each VF module is being deployed.
Yep.
The question becomes here, do we deploy each like Helm subchart, or do we deploy one big Helm chart at the end of the day? What is that's the current implementation? What is the current implementation?
The current example
Yes.
is SO makes one call to multi-cloud,
To deploy the entire,
deploy this thing, and then
the entire package.
and then multi-cloud goes and gets the packages and deploys it. And in this example, it deploys the three components.
Okay. So then that means we would need to make sure that when that SO interaction happens, that interaction is happening at the subchart level, not the.
So
Will be your VF module level, right? Like
It should be consistent, right? Otherwise, so this way scale out is the same, right? When we do
scale out will be different. You're increasing the number of replicas and whatnot.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that the scale out content should, when we do the implementation, it should work at that subchart level. It shouldn't work at the entire VNF level itself.
But you don't need the charts anymore.
So, like, chart composition, you can have a parent chart and a subchart, just the same way you can have a nested template. Plain level of composition. So you can either have individual ones if you want, or you can have nesting. Up to you how you want to package.
yeah, but the way it's done for today, you know.
When you do nested, you still deploy one
Today we
chart.
don't do nesting.
Oh, well, today you have 4 VF modules.
We don't do nesting
It
anymore.
means you would deploy 4.
But even nesting is a VF module level, right?
Yes.
So-
It's equivalent to the heap.
But what I'm trying to get at, the point I'm trying to make sure I emphasize is that if we want to get into the same implementation as, cloud agnostic, right, we shouldn't have a different workflow orchestration in SO talking to multi-cloud. It should be the same thing as OpenStack. Otherwise, a scale-out use case won't work the same. Also would have to have some logic that would be different, or multi-cloud.
I would be careful about the scale out part, because you don't want to retrofit the way you scale out on OpenStack into Kubernetes. You want to leverage native capabilities of Kubernetes for scaling up. So I would not assume it's going to be exactly the same.
But would the orchestration be the same? Not the...
No, but my point is in this particular example, you want to delegate that. You don't want to control that from SO to scale out. You want to delegate that to Kubernetes instruct. What it should do
But the
is
SO orchestration for the procedure, would it be based on the building block approach? That it's operating at that VF module level, or do we want to have a different workflow for Helm?
No, same
It
one.
should be the same.
It's just the
content.
cloud region,
The content.
based on the cloud region type, I'm going to be able to know where I go and what I do.
But if you say it should be the same, then his argument is why are you deploying the entire package, not one VF module after the
subchart.
As you scale out,
But it can be the-
another deployment of Kubernetes.
No,
So not.
no, it should not. For Kubernetes, it should not. But the scale out, look, if we scale out, it means that we need to do reassignment, right, at some point. In this case, we're going to reassign the Helm value, and we're going to reassign the replica number to maybe 3. And then it goes to multi-cloud, and multi-cloud, boom, Helm upgrade -E, blue, it's like that. So I don't think there is, that's, with the same flow, we achieve the same thing. It's just that the same flow, if we're HIP or if we're Helm, needs to do different, like at some point the path is going to be slightly different, but assignment is exactly the same. The notion of assignment is the same, right?
I agree, but in this way, you're not applying the version control in how you use Kubernetes, because you instruct it manually to scale it.
You're going to be using Kubernetes.
I won't argue that point because I won't do scale out use case on the Kubernetes infrastructure. I would let Kubernetes scale out on its own. That's for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So that's why he's saying scale out is not a good use case.
Okay.
Kubernetes is going to scale out on demand. You don't need to tell it to scale out.
Okay.
Kubernetes already. See Kubernetes as its own steroid. So Kubernetes actually its own steroid times 10. Okay? That's what it is, right? Kubernetes is an orchestrator.
Yeah.
And it's an orchestrator that does closed loop, meaning that it's able to gather information on what it's deploying its infrastructure, and based on this, it's able to, based on some policies or things that you define in Kubernetes, to take action.
So the question is not Kubernetes, it could be anything, right? Any type of...
Let's put aside the scale out, I think.
The composition, I think.
But the composition aspect is...
The main thing is reuse of building blocks and VF module implementation.
Oh, I understand your point now. Yes.
The point is, you should, for a scale, like, you shouldn't even call
Yeah, we don't...
for a scale out. Like, if you want to implement a good use case, you shouldn't scale, like, on a scale out, when it's a Kubernetes chart, you shouldn't have to do anything.
Okay.
So actually, what do we do if it's Kubernetes?
Because if you do something, you tell them to scale out, then essentially you're...
So what do you do? So if you have a Kubernetes...
You have to reconfigure the VLP?
But to reconfigure, okay, we can use CDS, easy. I mean, there is no Kubernetes. I'm just trying to think, what are the use cases of ONAP with Kubernetes, besides deploying and deleting? Oh, because all the life cycle of the CM is Kubernetes.
That's my
There goes ONAP out of the door.
Well, hey, that's the red hat guy. That's how Aaron, he kept saying, like, guys, let's use Kubernetes to orchestrate and not SO, but, different topic.
So what Yuri was pointing was this, right? Like today, you're essentially deploying them as individual VF modules when you do, and that translates into multiple stacks and heaps, in OpenStack, sorry. But what Eric was mentioning was it's all deployed in one single thing. So now you're reducing the 3 steps, that are 3 SO calls to the OpenStack adapter into one call when it comes to Kubernetes.
Yes, the Kubernetes simplifies things tremendously.
Well, you can do the same thing with OpenStack.
I think the
But no, but
case was based off of the early...
OpenStack, then you lose the granularity of being able to scale out one VM.
So
Whereas
in OpenStack, this, if you do a nested heap, you would get the one VM itself, right? One VM in OpenStack.
Yes.
In Kubernetes, you're getting 3 pods.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So fair enough.
Yes. Yes.
So this is 3 calls to OpenStack adapter and 1 call to here.
So
But is this, sorry, maybe back to you.
But I mean, just to go on the OpenStack, I mean, the first demos I did with ONAP, there was 1 call to the OpenStack. Yeah, that's right. And what I've seen in your examples is you split that all out.
Yes.
Which...
it can work in various use cases.
But if you split it, the advantage
there's advantages, right?
is that you can scale individual components. And I was having this discussion with Seb exactly for the EPC use case that we anyhow.
Yeah, do it.
So in Kubernetes, it's been a question on my mind, okay, did, the person who originally packaged the Kubernetes firewall example together, base it off something, right? Not on your example. And so the question in my mind is, do we need to make...
Actually, this is good because the premise of having a Kubernetes cloud versus an open or heap-based cloud, the premise are very different. It's very not the same mindset to have, and that's where I fall into the pitfall and my corrective but yeah, the premise is very different because of the way you do things with Kubernetes, and so maybe it's very fine to have just one package.
So then that means that for all Kubernetes use cases, the only thing you have is the VNF level resource assignment. You don't have anything else. Because as part of the VNF,
No, but
You could have if you want.
why? If the only thing you do is create and delete,
Exactly.
that's what we're saying, then everything else is...
Yeah.
But wait a minute though, like in Kubernetes, let's say you want to deploy this guy and not this guy for the first time. Let's say day 1 you want to do that. You can easily do that, right? You just say enable this guy and disable this guy. And then you should be able to have the assignment redone for the sync if you come.
But what use case, what you're describing, would that be a part of that service, or will be another service that has that type of packaging?
No, well, it should be part of the same service. You're just adding another.
Yeah, but this is going to be based on some input parameter. So, I mean, the logic is we're still just at the VNF level.
It's a different type of service, what I want to say.
It's still under we just have one value.yaml file to resolve. Then whether it's enabled or disabled, this is going to be based maybe on.
We can also do that based on input. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is exactly based.
You can do velocity conditional logic to say that enable this subchart or enable that subchart.
No. I'm not arguing about having a resolution for. So say you need to resolve some other values other than just enabling it. Let's say it requires, I don't know, image name.
Yeah, but all that you can derive.
All that velocity template.
Derive with velocity. If vsync true, then I need to resolve all this.
Yeah, but all I'm getting at is you need to do a secondary phase during the deployment of vsync. Another assignment to assign his images, not do it if it's disabled.
But that's not, if you have a chart with subchart, basically, the higher level value.yaml file. So what you're saying is you want to configure the value.yaml file of the subchart. That's what you're saying?
Yes. And only do that when it's turned on.
If that's what you want to do, then you're going to have the equivalent of NF and I'm trying to not use D, but C. So you have CNF, and then you have CF module. Right? But so if you need to manipulate the value of the subchart, then it would be a CF module, right? So you would still have the CNF with CF module. So it's exactly the same as the v firewall.
Okay.
But if you want to bubble up all the config to the root value.yaml, and you could do that, right?
Yeah.
Then you consider just the CNF and you don't care what's below.
Yeah.
So both you can.
So I think we're saying the same thing then.
Yeah.
We're saying that the real DNF and CNF, the resolution and all that still stays the same way as the hierarchy and everything.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
The only thing that needs to change is that SO, so assignment is the same, goes to SDNC, goes to CDS.
But the question is, does it go through VNF, VF module, or does it just do VNF?
Maybe it's a new stuff. Maybe it would be CNF and CF module or whatever.
But would it do you still want to orchestrate for each subchart?
Yes, based on the topology you design.
Right.
So that's what it is. You know, the SO macro building block, based on what you design, is going to orchestrate what you need, what you care about. And then the only difference is at the creation step in SO. So the create building block in SO, this guy needs now to account for the cloud region type. And if it's HIP, same as today. If it's Kubernetes, then it's going to be different. And this is where you go to multi-cloud. But then multi-cloud, what multi-cloud needs to do is it needs to fetch the value.
Is it fetching for all the packages or just per subchart?
Well, if you have one DNF and no module, whatever we have, again, based on the topology.
You can just do the way it is for VMware.
Yeah, so you replicate the exact same, but it's just that multi-cloud as input. Multi-cloud should actually be very to the point where we receive the request with, hey, this is a help to deploy, and this is the override file. So multi-cloud would be provided the override file by SO.
So the idea would be still that we're doing this at the, VF module level itself, the creation. So it's driven based on subcharts.
Yeah.
Based on if you have subchart, yes.
But even you can have just one subchart. I want to be consistent, right?
Okay, no, the thing is with CNF, you can have a create CNF. But with VNF, you can't create a VNF.
Exactly.
So,
because you work at the heap stack level, which is VF module level.
Yeah,
my point is, so why do we shift from heap? Because the heat equivalent is your Helm chart, parent chart.
It is, exactly. What we're trying to agree is that, those steps are we're going to execute regardless if it's, because the current implementation.
The point is there's absolutely no decision.
Then you want to enforce, when you design, that you have the top chart and sub chart.
No top chart. No top.
You can or you can't.
All we're saying is,
like now you don't have.
Okay, the point is if you don't have subchart,
you could have
one chart.
You don't need it.
what if you create a network?
Yeah, but if you don't need it, that's why
You don't need it, but again, the idea is not about base templates, the idea would be more about orchestration of each of the stacks, right? So the stacks could be base stack, there could be a concept of base stack, right, or VF module, whatever it may be. So you can still do base, and then you do all the other subchart creation. So as long as we agree on that principle, then we can reuse exactly what SO does today. If we disagree on that principle, then we have to have a different type of orchestration that is not, that has to be more Helm driven, right, or subchart driven, or whatever it may be.
But the way it works today with OpenStack, the fact that you have to do multiple stack is feedback from our use case and customers that it's not a good idea. Why use a for example? So maybe.
But the scale out is the reason why you want to do it.
Yeah, but
You don't have to create a new stack. You can do it
Through the what?
You just change the number of servers you want.
Yeah.
Oh, you do it like a change management type of.
So maybe we need to have.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So rather than increasing the module underneath it, you could actually do another update.
You can do an LCM. That's what you're describing. LCM.
But it has its own.
And right now,
It's easier to just.
example,
But it's just, the one that
also flying outside.
use ONAP, but not automated, so they create a stack alone, on their own.
Yeah.
And then we kind of have to mimic the way of working, which is not so much
Right.
By the way, I was not suggesting that we, you get rid of the concept of module. What you do is you build SO in such a way that with one call you can deploy all the modules.
Okay.
All the VM modules.
But you can do the same thing in creation. As part of creation, you deploy all the stacks, but there's still individual calls to OpenStack. What you're saying is that instead of individual calls, you can do one call with aggregated set of stacks.
If you want to.
If you want to. But again, that same concept can be applied to Helm as well. But my question is, is that what we want to do? Like,
I'm not saying that's what we want. If we want to do you can do essentially say, hey, OpenStack Adapter, here's the stack that will be equivalent to these all have charts. No, and actually, we should kind of suggesting one way.
like a
okay.
The user wants to deploy more than one.
Our train was leaving at 6:05 this morning to get in. No, Monday, like to get in there this morning. And I'm on the train, I'm texting him at 5:50, it's like, hey, I'm on the train, whatever, I'm here. I hear nothing from him. 6:03, like a minute before 6:03, the train leaves at 6:04, he's like, oh, I just made the bus, I see him running onto the platform.
I've been looking at
I saw
Stop the recording.
Yeah, and then I get out.